edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I like to call this Monday Night Football. Let's try this again since our first link had some technical difficulties. So we'll go ahead and get it started. Thank you for all being so patient. Here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm Lisa for Foot Mex Nation. This is an hour-long podcast dedicated to all things Mexican football, Mexican soccer. On today's Mexican Soccer, we're going to be talking all about the Mexico-Costa Rica match that was quite a doozy for the Mexicans, not so much for those ticos that invaded the Estadio Azteca on Friday, March 24th. We're going to analyze Osorio's lineup. We'll talk all about the players, talk about the score. We're going to talk about what's next. Hopefully we can get Mr. Tom Marshall to jump on since he is in Port of Spain in Trinidad and Tobago. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to say hi to the guys that are out there. Mr. Naib Moran, who normally is in La Ciudad de Mexico, but today he's in the States. How's it going, Naib?
Good. Buenas noches, Wiso. Buenas noches, Jason, Cesar, and all the audience that is watching us. After a good couple of hours in Mexican football, I think the victory against Costa Rica was important to rekindle that lost love in Estadio Azteca, no? And I think that's important to sort of fix ahead of an important year for El Tri.
The love is back with the Azteca. La gente de Mexico loving, singing. That's what happens when there's an early goal. Mr. Jason Marquardt, Soccer Mexicana. How's it going, brother?
It's going well. Yeah. It's weird to be in a position where everything is just positive, right? It feels a little weird to come on here and just not be overly negative about a lot of things. It's kind of my nature. So I'm going to have to go against the grain a bit today, but I'll work on it.
All right. Good to hear it. And Cesar Hernandez. How's it going, brother?
Yeah, like I said, jumped in the show a little late, so apologies, but I guess it's all right since we're all quite late anyways to begin with, so now I don't feel nearly as bad, but yeah, no, it's really positive. It's weird, especially with all the stuff that's been happening in Liga MX recently. There's a lot of downers, whether it comes down to the refs or there's controversial actions from the disciplinary committee. There's a lot of really negative stuff surrounding Mexican soccer, so this is a nice breath of fresh air, but let's see if Mexico can continue that tomorrow.
Definitely breath of fresh air. Let's go ahead and get into it. I think that's a good way to say it, especially for things in Azteca. Let's go say hello to everyone that's on the chat. Ralph 2010 being first. Joanna Sanchez, who Joanna, she has the link before anyone gets it, before we even take it out. That's because she subscribes to our YouTube channel, so you know anything that happens before we even post it on Twitter, etc. So saludos a Joanna, who's always listening and who's always on Twitter, also commenting and asking us questions and nothing. So thank you, Joanna. JP Santoyo is on there. Our friends at Pancho Villas Army and TJ Leva. A lot of people, and I gotta say, today I wore the PVA shirts. This is when I was a soldado. I don't like to bust out the colonel one or sergeant. I think it's colonel. Sergeant? I don't know, but it's better than this one.
Sorry I didn't salute you when I first came out of the show.
Started like that, but Pancho Villas Army, which, if you haven't known already, there's an amazing package for PVA. You have to go to the Mexico-US game in the Azteca. We'll throw out some more links. Use our code FOOTMEX50 and you get $100 off. So meet me at the Azteca with PVA. It's going to be awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. We are already a little late, so we're gonna do an hour of this. So if you can stay with us a little longer, just for this one, because we came out a little late. So let's go ahead and get started with. Before that, I did mention Mr. Tom Marshall will be joining us live from Port of Spain. Hopefully, I know he was just in the press conference with Juan Carlos Osorio, said some amazing things about Carlos Vela. We'll make news of it. He'll come on and tell us, and we'll have a little preview on what's to come tomorrow in this Mexico-Trinidad. But before, let's talk about what I'm sure everybody's waiting to hear, our thoughts, or at least these guys, the thoughts on Mexico versus Costa Rica on Friday, which we got to say, let's start off with surprising. Did this Mexico surprise you at all, Naib? And especially with Juan Carlos Osorio, it wasn't like a very experimental lineup. Maybe one or two players are in there, but were you surprised with what he came out in that starting 11?
Surprise, I don't think it's that big of a surprise, Luis. I mean, I think when you look at the fact that, for example, Jonathan Dos Santos, that was his first ever start in Azteca. Well, that kind of surprised you because of the, important career he's had in Europe. Of course, it hasn't been a swift career in Europe. It's actually been a bumpy one, with actually being relegated on the bench in Barca and then barely getting his playing time in Villarreal. But then, of course, there's these injuries. I was personally, I think a lot of people were impressed with Vela's game. I think we saw what we wanted to see out of him, 2 assists, being really special in the front third in the first half. I think that was crucial for Mexico and getting that big win. And, also seeing a little bit on the defense, I think Araujo also, put a stamp on his curriculum, and it looked like he's going, he's increasing his momentum with the national team. And there was also with Rafa Marquez. He only played 60 minutes, and we now know that he's injured, and we'll have to go back to Atlas. So
the Araujo stock is slowly, going up in the last week or 2 weeks. It all kind of started with Juan Carlos Osorio mentioning that he's one of the 4 players that he would like to see or will see in Europe. And it's slowly just, and he scores. Everyone's talking about Araujo.
Yeah. I think Naive could probably talk about this a little bit more, but so Naive posted an article saying about Araujo, if we're going to jump into this now, it just came to mind, but about how Araujo is ready for, he might be ready for Europe. And I've seen a lot of people online, criticize that, be like, what, he had 1 good game. He's only been recently doing well. But I think what people forget is, you got to look back at how he's been exceeding expectations for quite some time, not just with the national team, but just with Santos Laguna too. There are probably a lot of Santos fans out there who have seen Araujo, or just Liga MX fans, and know that what he has done has been quite impressive. And it's been, like I said, I think he continued to stand out the national team. I think, like I said, Naive wrote about this, but I think the previous game, that was just an example of how good he really can be. And I've talked about this a lot before. For some odd reason, I think Araujo is a lot older than he actually is. When I think of Araujo, I think that he's 29, 30. I don't know why I think he's that old. But as I've mentioned, he's just 1 year older than Reyes. He's just one, just to put that into perspective. This isn't some veteran. This is a guy who can still get a little bit better. I think that's something to keep in mind about him.
Araujo's is his second, we'll talk a little bit about, but I mean, Araujo's been in the national team before. He was with Piojo in South America in La Copa Sudamericana. I mean, in Copa America, I'm sorry, Copa America in 2011.
Okay. Yeah, no. The thing, real quick with Araujo and this process, it's a player that was brought up with Osorio in the last Copa America Centenario, so it's a process that is slowly going. Let's think of, for example, Massa Rodriguez. When he went to Europe, he was around 25, 26, which is the same age that Araujo has, and Massa ended up doing great in PSV, and then went to Stuttgart, and of course he came back to America. But I think that's kind of the same sort of process that Araujo is living, So we'll see what happens this summer if he plays in the Confederation, if that increases the stock and allows him, to play over there in Europe. But I think he's solid. He's solid with the ball. He's solid in the aerial game. So I think those are 2 things that stand out with him.
Definitely. Let's talk about what happened at the Azteca. And for those of you that obviously were watching a game where Mexico came in and before we talk about the score, just it was astounding to see the Costa Rican team fans there. I think the number was around 7,000 to 8,000. And if you've ever been in the Azteca, it was pretty much a whole corner of the Azteca that was just full of red, and it was very, very impressive of how they traveled. Not only that, the 2 days coming in, I had a lot of time to spend some time to interview these Tico fans. And I mean, they were really, really counting on Costa Rica, el segundo Aztecaso. They were talking, about that this is a team. They're leaders of CONCACAF. What they did in the World Cup. It looks like kind of this reverting the same pinto, what they did against the U.S. Very, very como confiados in a sense that I kind of like that. I like the fact that there was other teams coming to the Azteca feeling that way, and Mexico wasn't. It looks like we're always on the opposite side, but we're the ones that are already winning a game before it starts. especially in the Azteca. And looking at that, even after the match, a lot of ticos were disappointed. You're like, where's our team? And it was good to see because I think this is where Juan Carlos Osorio really shined, in the fact that you saw a team that was very patient. And I haven't seen that with Mexico. In fact, I don't remember the last time that I said, wow, Mexico's not going forward 100%. And I was able to ask Miguel Layún afterwards if Juan Carlos Osorio said something different or what was different about this game. Because you saw often where they had 4-on-2 counters, and Mexico would bring it back when they were up 2-0, when they were up 1-0. And we're not impatient. They were playing intelligent football. And it was a very different team, I think. It's one of the best games that I've seen under Osorio. The first half against Uruguay, maybe the first half against the U.S., but a full game where the team was composed. The team didn't want to go for that, easy goal or try to take 3 players on a counter. But I saw something different where it kind of gives me a little hope that I think that these guys are bought in to whatever Juan Carlos Osorio is trying to bring with the national team. What do you think, Jason? As far as everything that you saw in the display of Mexico, it's a good sight, like you said, coming into the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think like overall it just surprised me that how well Mexico's midfield worked. I mean, like seeing that lineup put out. I mean, I had some concerns about what that exactly was going to look like.
Hey,
and
get him in here.
Yeah.
It's like that interview with the BBC.
I'm just gonna kick him out. It'll be fine.
We have our own BBC dad interview.
Nice one. But no, I mean, I think that the big surprise is how well it worked, because I mean, I had doubts with Rafa being in there, because it's Rafa, and we've been over this so many times on the show with what to expect with Rafa being in there, and like. Also, Jonathan Dos Santos. I'm a big believer in Jonathan Dos Santos as one of Mexico's strongest players, but we saw him start that match in Panama, and he didn't have one of his best performances in Mexico's midfield. I think there's a case to be made that he was one of Mexico's best, if not the best, for Mexico on the field on the Azteca. So how well that worked, and kind of going off what you said, Wiso, as well, is that I think it was surprising that Costa Rica didn't take advantage of some of the weaknesses that Mexico had there, with Rafa being in the midfield, with I think the inexperience of Salcedo at right back. I think Costa Rica could have exploited some of those, and I don't think we saw the best from Costa Rica. I think Mexico did well, and I'm not taking anything away from Mexico because I think they performed well, and I think Osorio set them up very well. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that Costa Rica were disappointing on the night. I don't think they had their best night.
I had this conversation with Tom and John Arnold from Goal when we were in Cuernavaca, and I just said to them, we were talking about the game we were expecting the next day, and I said, look, I give Costa Rica credit for what they did in the World Cup. I have not seen that same Costa Rica. And the only game that I've seen him where they were, they did well against a good team, mind you. I mean, they played against Jamaica. I think they tied against Jamaica, or they played against Panama and Honduras, and they beat those teams. But I feel like CONCACAF is weaker this time around. But I was telling Tom that I don't expect a great Costa Rica because I have not seen one since the World Cup. Because what they did when they were going to bring it, and they had a chance to do something big in the Copa America against the U.S., it was like 4-something. I think 4-1 or 4-0. I mean, they totally failed in the Copa America to beat a great rival like the U.S. Sure, they beat them in Costa Rica, but that was a U.S. that already got beat in Mexico and Columbus. Klinsmann's on the way out. So I feel like the Costa Rican team como que se inflaron because I have not seen them play. And then they were coming into the Azteca where, regardless, it's still the Azteca. It's still Mexico's home. So I don't feel like this Costa Rica team, unless, they can turn it around. And you're seeing in CONCACAF right now, Trinidad beating Panama, Honduras getting 6 goals by a U.S. So there's just so much going on in it that I felt like Costa Rica was a little bit overrated coming into it, and I kind of like that. I think that is an interesting point to make, but at the same time, I'm just looking at their scores from their 2 previous World Cup qualifying matches. I mean, they beat Trinidad and Tobago 2-0, and they beat the U.S. 4-0.
at home. I think that is what you mentioned is interesting, but I think in that last match has more to do with how well Mexico played. I just think that they provided little opportunities for Costa Rica to really get that going. I think something also is worth noting that I feel like no one's really talked about either is that Ochoa had a good game in net.
Yeah.
I don't know why people aren't really.
No,
it was a big save, but I think
there was one time where he went out and he didn't, and he had a bad. I even said I tweeted it. He mistimed it on a corner and it went on the other side. And then he had that good save by Bolaños, which was an amazing save.
I think there were several crosses where he came out into the perfect opportunity and he punched the ball out. I think everyone's going to say just about that one save, but no, I think there were several times that he really started. He showed a lot of confidence.
Confidence.
And I think that's, and I don't know why. It feels like for some odd reason I'm not hearing enough about Ochoa from the last game.
Overall, the game, I think what we can take out is that there was solidness from Mexico, and that we're seeing some type of consistency. Because if we analyze the 3 hexagonal games and even the World Cup qualifiers before the hexagonal, there's been consistency from Osorio's Mexico. Of course, the asterisk or the question mark derives from Copa America Centenario, where they played against opponents that are of top caliber, Uruguay and Venezuela and Chile. And so that's where they conceded the most goals in that short tournament, that short span. However, when you look at what's been going on in CONCACAF play, I think Osorio's Mexico has really succeeded. It's surpassed expectations because we do see some type of comfort. I mean, there's a style that is working out right now for Mexico. Of course, you're going to have your debates about whether it's okay with rotations or not. Right now, Osorio needs rotations because of injuries and because, players are in trouble with yellow cards. But, you got to keep a lot of people happy, in Mexico, because I think the notion that these players have when they go on the pitch is that their opportunity will come at one point. It might not be as a starter, but they're an integral part of the team. And I think that's something to point out with Osorio is all the players in that list that he always calls out will have an opportunity. So, for example, we all thought that maybe Orbelín Pineda was going to play on Friday, but it ended up being Jonathan Dos Santos, and Jonathan did excellent. Well, maybe it could be Orbelín and Jonathan. We haven't mentioned about it. Herrera was probably the frustrating player in that match. Yeah. He has too much quality to be playing at such a bad level. That's my opinion about Herrera.
Well, something that's got to say, and I'll say it, this Mexico that we saw, it was a great Mexico against Costa Rica, but this Mexico is not ready for the Confederations Cup. There was lapses in there where Costa Rica did find a hole. I think they were the better team after the first goal, and that could have been because JCO just said, let's wait for them. But there were times where in the maybe 20 minutes after the first goal or 30 minutes, Costa Rica was taken, and there was 4 shots that if for whatever reason it could have been 1-1, and it could have been a completely different game. Granted that Mexico also had, I think Peralta also missed a pretty easy chance, but this team still has a lot to go if they're going to compete in Confederations Cup with the Portugals and Chiles that are about to come in. And I would definitely like to see some consistency, and our injuries are hurting.
But of course, I'm saying, I think a lot of that too had to do with the injuries. I mean, just look at the list. It's Tecatito, Gio, Aquino, Marco Fabian, Irving Lozano, Andres Guardado. If you want to look even further, you could say someone like Paul Aguilar, who could have been in that right back position. Would have been healthy. Unfortunately,
Aquino's not injured. He's just not doing well, right? Or is he injured?
No, he was out injured.
He is out injured.
Yeah, he's been out injured for a while, though, which is why there was not that big of a deal that he didn't get called up, because he's still trying to get back to match fitness. But Aquino was one of those players who was injured or just getting back to match fitness. It wasn't considered. But I think when you look at that long list of players, I think that I don't know, we shouldn't be too critical in a Mexico that won 2-0 against Costa Rica at the Azteca, and especially since I don't know, before the match,
critical, but it's good that we did it. I mean, there's still room to grow.
Yeah.
You put in a Chucky in there, and I'm thinking or you put in it's like even Guardado. I mean, it worked really well with Jonathan again, and I feel like it's a double-edged sword because I feel this Costa Rica is not as great. So we're gonna have to see, and that's what's great about Mexico. There's a lot of games, so we're definitely gonna see. We're gonna see what happens.
Do you think there's a chance back line of 4 is the line of 4 we see this summer and potentially the summer after. So I think this might be our 4.
I really
You
think
see for a
Rafa
while?
will be there. I think Rafa's gonna make it.
No,
I'm
but in the
telling
back line
you.
of 4,
I am
Wiso,
telling you. I think
No,
that he's
Rafa-
gonna make it.
Rafa-
I don't know if
Rafa's
he's
gonna
gonna
be
be a full 90, but I think Rafa's gonna be this summer, and he's gonna call him for the World Cup. I don't know if he's gonna play, but I think he's gonna go to the World Cup.
No,
He-
Rafa's the starting 11. He's going to be that defensive midfielder position. He's going to be that's what it's going to be. If Rafa is in that starting 11, not as a defender, maybe it'll
But
feel
you-
like
you
a
see
defender,
how-
but
But it's funny how he plays that, but he starts out as a defender from the back. It's like all balls go through him or Moreno. And even though he's on defensive mid, he's still getting that. And watching it from the Azteca from the top, he has command of the defense. Even if he's a defensive midfield, he's telling everyone where they need to be at. And
I guess
that's what I'm
it's-
talking about. Like, everyone's still dependent on Rafa telling people what to do.
yeah. I guess that's we're just arguing whether he's defensive midfielder or central defender, but I guess we can't. The bigger topic here is the fact that whether we like it or not, whether I like it or not, because I've been writing for God knows how long that Rafa should be in the starting 11. That he's, I don't like the fact that Rafa's in the starting 11, but he had a good game. For the player ratings, I had to give him a 7. He was solid. He was
done better than Rafa.
he was in the.
Like, he's still outperforming anyone that we have in Mexico.
It's frustrating, man. It's frustrating.
we'll see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow we don't have Rafa in the 11 for sure, and Reyes comes back, and Reyes could potentially play that position, because it's a position that he knows quite well. But Jason brings a good point. I mean, I do see Moreno as a starter.
Osorio's teams,
Osorio's
teams with Rafa are undefeated. Just gonna throw that out there.
That's true. That's true.
So I'm just throwing it out there. Sorry,
The
keep
same
going.
be said for Atlas, but all right, sorry.
and I think the evolution of Araujo will be important in the next months, because if he does move on to Europe, he automatically, I think, does. It also depends what club he goes to in Europe and if he plays in Europe, because right now Salcedo, that's the problem. I mean, he's in Europe, but you could tell that he had difficulty. I mean, it wasn't easy for him marking Brian Ruiz and Venegas because he still has lack of playing time. And for example, if you compare his work rate to Jonathan, who does have a lot of playing time in Europe, you could see the difference. I mean, Jonathan was sprinting the whole 90 minutes, and Salcedo did have trouble in certain lapses of the game, and you were like, oh my God, if they keep going on that side, they can create danger.
Yeah.
But I think he has a lot of options. Osorio has a lot of options in midfield and in the defense. In the forward position, well, the recuperation of Vela and Chicharito, I think those are going to be staples of his attack. And you can maybe add Tecatito, and then voila, you actually have a solid 11 for the big games,
And let's talk about that midfield, and we kind of going for it. Jonathan, I think, is probably his best game that I've seen. I've been a big critic on Jonathan Dos Santos. When are we going to see this guy play? But I felt like he was in tune. He was making the right passes. He knew. I feel like he just knew what Osorio wanted him to do. He did it perfectly. And it's good. Finally, I still have that conspiracy that two Dos Santos cannot play in the same team. It's like I feel like they give each other the power. Okay, either I'm going to do it or I'm going to do it. But I'm glad that he's there. Hector Herrera, as you said, again, how many more games are we going to give Hector Herrera before we just go, okay, move over?
And especially since we just talked about how talented that midfield is, how many options we have in that midfield. You can have notably Pineda. If he wasn't called up, we could have someone like Eric Gutierrez step in. We have a lot of options, and it's just I was surprised. I will be very surprised. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Osorio if Hector Herrera is, or maybe I'll be more frustrated more than anything else than surprised if Hector Herrera is given another start tomorrow. Just because I really wanted someone like Orbelin to step in the second half and take over his role. And I was, as a fan, I was just like really bothered that he played the full 90 minutes. But with the amount of options that Mexico has in that midfield, even after all these injuries, it's just he shouldn't be playing at the level. He shouldn't be in that starting spot if he continues to play. Or not even just play, if he continues to hide the way he did in that last. He did nothing. He was the most disappointing player on the pitch.
Yeah, no, definitely. Rafa, Jesus Molina stepped in, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, Jesus
I feel
Molina.
like that's Osorio's guy too, Molina, and which granted he's been with Mexico for a while now. So, and aside from maybe what game was it? We were just like he was just horrible. Sometime last year. It's not like we've seen Jesus Molina do a bad job. And if you look at it, I think that's Osorio's replacement for Rafa, especially in that role.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the forwards. Let's talk about Chicharito, Vela, and Peralta, who it looked like they're training all week and se conocen. It's that first goal. What Peralta did to bring it down, kind of almost like a sombrerito, passing it to Vela. Vela's first stop, and then just an amazing ball, and then the finish from Chicharito was just pure class. And I think that's where Mexico had an advantage, at least on that side of the field. Costa Rica, with probably the defense was probably the worst, since I think it's a few MLS players, just players that do not get that, to play against a caliber forward like Carlos Vela and how smart he is, or someone that beats you or has amazing placement in the field like Chicharito, who knew Carlos Vela was going to, give that through pass and went from behind the defense, beat him to the forward, and was able to chip it over his best buddy, Keylor Navas. So the forwards surprise you. Peralta having a good week with this team, and then now, and I think I'm seeing maybe a change. Raúl Jiménez coming in, but as far as the forwards, Naib, to you, that's probably the best. I feel if we have to put either forwards, the mid, or the defense, I think Mexico, especially up top, is pretty well off.
No, definitely. I think what Peralta has been doing in the last 2 weeks, was impressive over there in America, and I think that's what granted him the opportunity to be a starter. He knows the environment in Azteca pretty well now that he's played there for a while as well. And also that the leadership aspect with Peralta is really important here. I think he stands out in that regard, being a leader and pushing the players forward. And you already have the creative sense from Vela and Chicharito. I just think Vela does so much with the ball that it's just few defenders can stop him, not just in CONCACAF, but worldwide. So I think if they can exploit that, that's definitely gonna stand out. And the return of Tecatito will just boost it a little bit more,
And that's what I'm saying. We still got Tecatito and Gio, and I would put Gio on the bench. Tecatito, Peralta does something that no one else does. He can play behind he can play his back towards the goal. And I don't see Chicharito being that type of player, or even Vela being that type of player. But I think Peralta is key. Jimenez can be that player for sure.
I think I prefer to have Raúl Jiménez in that Oribe role. Like if we were to have someone with a little bit more physicality as opposed to like a Chucky or a Gio, which is a little bit more tactical and a little bit more pace. But I think I'd rather have a Jimenez.
So right now everybody's healthy. What are the three forwards in Osorio system that you have?
I think it would be Tecatito, Chicharito, and Vela.
Yeah,
I think that's right as well.
I feel like Osorio wants someone like Oribe or Raúl Jiménez, not because they're better than Tecatito, but I feel Tecatito and Carlos Vela, are fighting for that creator type of spot. Chicharito, it has to be there. I mean, he just has to be there. There's no one else that does his job better of being where he needs to be. So that's where I feel Oribe and Raúl are fighting for a spot. Tecatito and Vela are fighting for a spot, and in the way that he likes to have someone towards the back so he can feed off the playmaker and can give it to Chicharito.
I mean, we're talking about Osorio here, so then this is probably completely dependent upon the opponent, like who is forwards are. Like, he's never going to have like these are my three guys.
No, that's entirely true. Because obviously, if there's someone which we
if
can
they're
hit them
tall
with
players. Jimenez is definitely here.
Or I mean, actually, the perfect example is like against the U.S. Last year when that was Tuca, that wasn't Osorio, but we saw that front line, which is a little bit more physical, which had Oribe and Jimenez working with Chicharito. So that's an option. But I've always,
That could
especially,
be an option. That could be an option tomorrow, actually. Having Vela as your star sub, basically, similar to what he did in the Honduras game in 2015, is having Tecatito come off the bench, and then Tecatito resolve the problems that were going on in the game. And tomorrow, I do see that as a possibility. Peralta, Raúl, and Chicharito from the start, and you have Vela as a great reserve, and to have in the second half.
Let's just give thanks to Juan Carlos Osorio for allowing us to think about a starting 11, and we never know what it's going to be. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have a show. I mean, imagine a team that it has the same 11 every time. Yeah, it would get a lot more wins, but
be careful when you say thanks to Juan Carlos Osorio. That gets you in a lot of trouble nowadays.
Thank you, Juan Carlos Osorio, because it gives us a chance to not, go, and this is our starting 11. We already know. Skip this next thing. No, we have no idea what's going to happen. I feel Peralta's not going to start. I think he's going to have Jimenez in. That's how I think.
Peralta spoke to the press today. Peralta spoke to the press today in Trinidad, so I think that kind of gives it in.
He does like people that speak to the press. That's how we knew Ochoa was going to start the following day. Dang you, Juan Carlos Osorio. I thought I had you figured out. I did think that Carlos Salcedo was going to make it, though. He's been talking about him, and a lot of people said, well, that's not his. So, and I was really surprised when Jonathan Dos Santos came in. So we'll see what's up. And the next topic is El Chicharito.
What did he do?
It's kind of we kind of forgot a little bit about his, like that. I think we were in the stadium and we go, oh, that's right. He still has the record because he hasn't scored in what, 5 months? 6 months?
9 months drought. It was a 9-month drought with the national
9
team.
months with it 3. So then we were like, okay, as soon as he scored, we go, oh my goodness, that's right. The record, it's him. It was kind of in the back of our mind, but congratulations to Javier. Totally different. I mean, I've covered the Mexican national team for the last 5 years, and seeing Chicharito at games in the way that he's either mad or he's fighting with the press, or he comes in and he runs off. Just a very different Chicharito. And it could be because obviously he scored that goal, but it was almost like that childlike Manchester United Chicharito was there on Friday, where he was enjoying the game and he's back to his scoring days. And congratulations to him on being the all-time sharing it with Javier Borghetti. And it's like now we're waiting for him to break the record tomorrow. But how big is this? And we can have a whole Chicharito show about. No one would have thought that this kid was going to do it when he first came in. His first 10 goals, it would have told you that he was going to break the record. And not only is he going to break the record, he's going to demolish the record. I think it's going to go 50, 60 before he's finished in the way that he keeps scoring, and that when he's giving the minutes. So congratulations to him. But it just kind of goes to show, I don't think that, Chicharito's always going to be that top Mexican, the best player ever because he breaks the record. And I think people want to put him up there because there's Guau, Rafa, Hugo Sanchez. But you have to merit the fact that he's going to become the best goal scorer in Mexican history. So, guys, to Chicharito, a great goal, by the way. I mean, that little chip over Keylor Navas. It was good to see. And somebody, I think someone mentioned it, that glad that it happened in the Estadio Azteca.
No, it's incredible. I was talking to my UPS guy earlier today about this. Got some insider knowledge after he delivered a book I ordered. No, this is a guy who's 28. He's 28 years old. He's doing I know he had a little bit of a drought in Bayer Leverkusen, but he could still do quite well in Europe. Tom had that chat with Jared Borghetti. We saw that last night when he posted that. Borghetti himself thinks that he could hit 50, 60, 70 goals perhaps for the national team, and especially with the amount of games that the national team plays. I mean, just look at this year, for example. You have, not saying that he's going to be involved in all these matches. Yeah, it's just it almost feels like a club team in a way, just because you have. This year you have Confederations Cup, you have Gold Cup, you have World Cup qualifying, and you have all those friendlies that you have in the U.S. as well. It's just
friendlies.
Well, there you go, the 5. That thanks to Soccer United marketing, which brings the games out here. But yeah, so he's gonna have that opportunity. It's not gonna be a surprise for him to hit that, like I said, the 60 or 70 goal mark that Borghetti just mentioned. So, and of course, it was appropriate that it was in the Estadio Azteca. And of course, it was perfect for that game where, you feel like Mexico, when they don't get that early goal, the crowd tends to turn against them. By halftime, you'll hear the whistles if there are no goals. So that was just the perfect opportunity. And who else but Chicharito to get that goal?
Is it the exact same amount of games? I think did I read somewhere where the exact same amount of games Borghetti scored the 45th goal, so did Chicharito?
That's right.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Not all the coincidences there. I mean, with Chicharito, it's just a magnificent story in Mexican football. A story of superación, how we say that word, to overcome a lot of obstacles. Because the guy, he was left off the 2005 U17 team because he wasn't good enough, and he even went to Peru and saw Vela and Giovanni celebrate the first World Cup in any category for Mexican football, and he wasn't part of that team. However, he's been able to forge a career in a team like Manchester United. There's no Mexican footballer that has made such a huge impact in a league that is so competitive and so fast and so physical, and that's all him. So looking at both sides of the coin, national team and also club level, it is a career that it will be kind of unmatchable. Of course, everyone says, well, he's not at the level of Hugo or Cuauhtemoc, but it's just a different way of perceiving the game. Educated guy, really family man, and all those details. Always courteous, amiable. It's just a great example for the youth in Mexico.
With new hairstyles. Yeah, no, definitely good. After the match, he was seen joking around, something that we haven't seen Chicharito, like I said before. Him and Keylor Navas were walking up kind of together. It's funny on the interview he said, how he kind of just said, yeah, I scored. It was great to have, even though I scored on one of my best friends. That's kind of funny, in that, in how it was. So, no, good for Chicharito in what we're seeing. And kind of the question, because when Jared Borghetti was scored, I think it was a game against Paraguay, there was a lot of talk to see if anybody was going to break it. Who would be the person to break it? And it's kind of cool to think about who would be the next person who you can see, the next person that could break that record. I don't know. I don't even have any idea of anybody in the stats wise, but maybe I would say Tecatito, that's scoring on the run, that I think he's got the most goals for Osorio, if I'm not mistaken. But who can even begin to start that route? So,
or is it Tom Marshall now that if he has Mexican citizenship? Oh man, is that Tom Marshall right there? Tom Marshall, are you gonna be breaking Chicharito's record?
I'll try my best. You know what I mean?
Well, we have we just got finished time just kind of talking about the game overall. Tom right now is in Port of Spain. Tom, where are you at? You're in a hotel, con la concentración. I know you've been following the team all day, posting great videos. If you haven't already, go to Facebook, follow Tom Marshall on Facebook also, because he does great live videos that give you great insights at least 3 or 4 times a day. I always get the notification. I'm always trolling his Facebook videos. But Tom, what's going on? Tell us.
All good. Just in the team hotel, the Mexican team hotel. The players have just come back from having a bit of dinner, so I just saw them all come past then. But yeah, I think really good spirit in the camp. They just trained in the stadium. The pitch isn't the best, but I don't know. I just think there's a good atmosphere surrounding the Mexican national team right now, and I think heavy favourites for tomorrow's game. I mean, I just think that they're in a good place right now.
Tom, really quick, I know the guys in the team want to kind of hear your thoughts. If you tell us about the Costa Rica team before we kind of go into the Trinidad, but overall your overall thoughts on the game on Friday and a staple win for Mexico, for Osorio's Mexico in this hexagonal.
Yeah, I think that's a good description of staple win, and that's what it should be when you're playing at home against a team that really player for player aren't as good as you. I mean, I just thought it was clinical. I thought Mexico managed the game well. I thought it was a mature performance. And yeah, obviously the cherry on top of the cake was Chicharito with the goal. So yeah, I think it looks really positive for Mexico overall. And yeah, I think that things are coming together under Osorio. I mean, I wrote a piece as well. I don't know if I was taking it too far, but it's almost like that 7-0 was actually, I don't know, over the long term, it could be a blessing. It kind of seems to have taken the kind of the hot air out of the team, and I think people are being a lot more realistic these days, and kind of like, you know what, no, we can take nothing for granted. A 7-0 is just 90 minutes away, against a good team. We've got to be really careful, and now it's a matter of rebuilding bit by bit, but doing it with a lot of humility. The players are all around here now, just over there, so I better not diss them too much.
Get him in here! Get him in here! Come on, Tom.
Oh, there they are.
That's it.
Oh, there they are.
Nice.
Is this? There's not that many Mexican fans, so there's no security. They can just kind of walk around, right, Tom?
Yeah, they can walk around. There's a few around, but there's a lot of press. Like always, there's a lot of Mexican press. Even now, there's probably even in the hotel lobby here, there's probably about 20 press members. So, yeah. But I mean, I think, it's not the same. I mean, coming to Trinidad is not the same as El Salvador and Honduras. I just think it's a lot. The atmosphere is a lot lighter.
Yeah. All right. So, what can you tell us about today, Tom? I know you went to a press conference. Specifically, I was watching your video about Carlos Vela. Questions about what he said, but give us kind of you said a little bit about the pitch. Give us your whole out of what you did today and some insights on the game for tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the pitch isn't the best. I mean, it is hot and humid. I think it's going to be a physical challenge for Mexico, because obviously they've had a long flight yesterday. They arrived about 11:30 at night. So then obviously to get up in the morning, get used to the humidity, go and train, it's not easy. I mean, no matter where you go in CONCACAF, these things aren't going to be easy. Like I said, the pitch isn't the best, but I think that, Osorio talking today, he's saying basically, this is no time for slacking. This is no time to be overconfident. And he basically said that he wants the competition for places within the squad to kind of, to diminish that kind of overconfidence. He wants players that maybe are going to come in to the game. Obviously with Osorio, there's going to be a few changes. So he wants those players coming in to really stake a claim and for permanent involvement in the starting 11. So what else? I interviewed.
I'll say, Tom, if you're going to make any guesses, I know it's a little hard to predict any lineups for JCO, but just from what you've seen out there, just what you talked about players, is there any big changes that if you were to make a prediction on what we'll see in the starting 11 tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously, Sorio described Trinidad and Tobago as the most athletic team in the hexagonal, says that. So I think you look at the size of the players at the team hotel, and they've got some huge players. I mean, And I think, therefore, there is going to be a bit of a reaction from Juan Carlos Osorio. So I think that obviously with Rafa Marquez out, I think that Molina comes in or Reyes comes in a kind of holding midfield role. I think Raul Jimenez will start because of that as well. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I'm looking at the starting 11, what I think it's going to be. And I honestly think that there's not going to be major changes. I don't know if Chicharito is going to start. I'd say probably not. I say that because just there was a hint from Osorio in the press conference today that would be the case. Plus, he's coming off the back of that injury. And then, I think Nestor Araujo has to start 100% because he's the best player Mexico have in the air. So I assume he's starting. And then I think Moreno is just a different level compared to his replacement, Alanis. So I think they're, and then, where else do you? I think it's going to be Obilin Pineda and Jonathan Dos Santos, and then Oribe Peralta, Raul Jimenez, and Carlos Vela, the top three. I won't be surprised if Carlos Salcedo as well is right back. That's how I think it's going to go. I don't think there's going to be wild changes, but I imagine 2, 3, or 4. I think the goalkeeper will change as well. I think Talavera is the better keeper coming out the crosses, and I think Osorio consistently has changed the goalkeepers between consecutive qualifying games, depending on the opposition. And I think that Trinidad are obviously going to be strong in the air, and they're going to be very direct in terms of getting the ball forward to Kenwin Jones. So I think that calls for Talavera over Guillermo Ochoa.
Any talk about the yellow cards? On players, I mean, was there anybody question about that? Is that something on Juan Carlos Osorio's mind? Because there are important games that are coming after, the U.S. and there are players that do have yellow cards that are piled up. Then obviously you get one more and you get you're not gonna be able to play.
Yeah, I think Layun, Moreno, both on yellow cards.
Bella and Herrera too, Tom.
Bella,
And-
yeah, Bella.
Yeah.
But actually, Osorio was asked about it and he said it's not going to matter one bit. He said he's not going to pick a team based on who's got yellow cards, and it kind of makes sense. At the end of the day, if those players that we just mentioned, Layun, Moreno, Herrera, and Vela, are out of the game against Honduras, I mean, for me, I don't think it's a big deal. And Osorio said today, look, you can't have his players going into these games and going in like half-hearted into tackles and stuff. You have to go into the tackles properly. At the end of the day, if you get a yellow card, you miss the next game. It's Honduras at home. You expect that without even a couple of those players, Mexico can get the job done. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it might be different if it was the US next up.
Yeah.
Then I think things might
It's
change.
like almost get the yellow.
Yeah, it's almost get the yellow.
Like at the end of the game, just wait. What game did I see someone do that? Where at the end of the game they were keeping, and then they just waited the 6-7 seconds before so they can get the yellow, so they're not. I gotta remember what game it is.
And obviously, this is a different Mexico too, which has got 2 wins in the first 3 matches, as opposed to a Mexico who got 2 over the last entire qualifying
Exactly,
run. So like this, if they were to miss a game, it's not that big of a deal. If Mexico gets a win tomorrow, they'll be 1 point off. Because they would be able to. There'll be 1 point from the total amount of points got the last qualifying run. So having one of those players missing wouldn't be nearly as big of a deal as it was last time
I
around.
say, they should all get yellows. Like they all go out to the ref and just push them or something.
And also
or
worth pointing out.
payback for that Cuauhtemoc injury in 2000 and whatever.
Yeah, and also worth pointing out, Mexico hasn't won a hexagonal game in Trinidad. So and this is the process. This is the process of the Osorio run, the Osorio tenure, which is known for those wins. At Canada.
Mexico has never won in Trinidad.
In
a hex game.
A hex game. Okay, a hex game. Well, I know they haven't even won a game against Trinidad, a qualifying game with 13 years. The last time there was a tie 4-4, so we haven't had like the greatest even results in the last 4 regular games. I think only 1 win, right?
Yeah, I think
the last two were draws. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I think Trinidad are the type of team that have caused Mexico problems, especially pre-Osorio. But I mean, I think so far what we've seen from Osorio, I mean, nobody's saying it's perfect what we've seen, but I think when he comes up against these kind of tricky games that other coaches have kind of struggled in, he's tended to come out with the formula. Obviously, Honduras away was the big one there, and the United States away as well. I mean, those 2 games were crucial, and I think this game against Trinidad is another where I think Osorio can come into his own with his tactics. And
the possibility of a back line of 4 with 4 center backs, because we saw it in that Honduras game. We saw Alanis as a left back, and now we have these options. We have basically Salcedo's right back, Araujo. Then you have Moreno, and then Alanis. Do you think, Tom, that could be a possibility, looking at being close to the camp?
Yeah, honestly, I've not thought of it. But yeah, it came up right now.
What are you doing out there, Tom? Come on.
Just chilling. Drinking rum. Stop with the questions. Difficult
why
questions.
is all the rum gun?
Stop with the difficult questions.
Stop it.
No, but no, I think it's possible. I mean, I think Salcedo's going to start and probably Layun. I mean, I think we've seen even against the States, it's almost like asymmetrical, that kind of back 4, because I think we saw Reyes against the States stay back, and I think we saw Salcedo against Costa Rica stay back. And if you look at it, if you want to be really, I don't know, a bit of a tactical geek about it, it's almost like that, the system Guardiola was using with Bayern Munich, where Philipp Lahm would actually go inside from a fullback position, cut inside to an extra man in midfield, or obviously further up the wing. And I think Layun's almost got a similar role to that.
That's what I've always kind of expected with Layun, especially when you see that back line of 4. I mean, in the last game too, it's like, is that really a back line of 4? Is that kind of more of a 3-4-3 when you have Layun pushing that high up, and he might as well be a midfielder at that point? But no, I think about that sometimes.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's sometimes we talk about numbers and systems, and I think the coaches themselves, it's a lot more, it's less black and white than that. It depends if you're in possession, out of possession. So yeah.
Tom, what did he say about Carlos Vela? interesting about a different Carlos Vela.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah,
Can you tell Jonathan Dos Santos to shut up, please?
Yeah, I think that I actually spoke to Sol Campbell today for quite a while, the former England international. And he was actually Carlos Vela's teammate in Arsenal. And he said, Vela was a great guy. He really liked him. Obviously, very, very talented. And that was the reason Arsene Wenger bought him. I mean, he really thought that Vela could fit into that system. But Sol Campbell said that the problem that Vela had with Arsenal was that he kept having to come back to Mexico. So he'd come back to Mexico for the friendlies, and he could never really establish himself with either, really. I mean, that was the reality of the situation. But he said, Vela now, he sees him playing, he's a lot more mature. He's, he's really come out his shell. And Osorio said the same. He said, Vela's now, he's grown as a player, he's a father now, and he's willing to sacrifice. I think the key phrase from Osorio was that he's understood that this is a short career. And I think Vela's like 28 now. And, it's such a short career. He's only got a few years left. He has to make these count, and obviously becoming a father and taking that into consideration, I think Vela's more determined than ever to really make an impact and for the national team. I think it's going to be massive for Vela now. I think it's a massive part of what he can achieve, in what remains of his career.
Mm-hmm. The obviously the storyline is a Trinidad and Tobago where we haven't won, and where Mexico has had problems with Trinidad, especially the type of player that that they are. Where if you saw in the Copa America, or was it Copa Oro, Copa America, where all of a sudden Trinidad had was a 4-4 tie, Copa Oro.
Yeah, that was a 4-4 last year.
Just like all of a sudden, the players have pretty good qualities of balonazos, and let's say if Alfredo Talavera starts, you could see them score in that way. Maybe not so technical, but the power that they have, how fast they are, which does give Mexico some problems. Do you see this, Tom, as almost being a harder game as opponent-wise than what we saw against Costa Rica?
I just think it's the fact that it's away. I mean, I just think it's the travel, it's the pitch, it's the humidity, and it's a Trinidad team who they're going to be well drilled. I think everywhere in world football, there's obviously a gap in talent between Trinidad and Mexico, but you get teams that are much better drilled, much better educated about how to play and how to get a result. So I just think that's the difference. I think obviously Costa Rica for me are the second best team in CONCACAF, so it was a difficult game, and I think it's credit to Mexico that Costa Rica was subdued, to be honest. But yeah, it's going to be a test, and I think at the end of the day, a draw is not a bad result for Mexico. Yeah,
and I was going to ask that. I mean, we wouldn't like a draw, but on a way, another draw.
That's not bad, especially when Mexico's their first. This will be their fourth game of World Cup qualifying. 3 of these have been away. If you can walk away with a draw here, and we know that there's a lot of home matches for the rest of the World Cup qualifying run, that's not bad. Mexico's in first place too, so I don't think a draw would be the worst result for the national.
This will be bitter. I'll say it. I want to win. I want to finally Mexico to be a 3, and I don't want to put this 3 like, well, a draw would be good. No, this is Trinidad and Tobago. All right, we're going to go to the World Cup. We're about to play Portugal. We have to beat Trinidad if we and if they don't.
Trinidad.
Yeah, I mean Trinidad. Yeah. So no, Mexico has to win. Yeah, ties it's just kind of a little bitter, and okay, it's not as bad as a loss, of course, but tenemos que exigir. This is the time that we have to win these games. We're about to go against in the Confed, so I'm saying I'm going to be mad if we don't win. All right, Tom. I know you got to go. I'm sure you had a very, very long day. Anything else that you can tell us for tomorrow, or anything that you're seeing that you haven't mentioned, sir, before we sign you off?
Not really. Just I mean, I think the players realize as well. This is like the last little push now before the summer. I mean, they play this game and then that's it. They go back to the clubs, forget about the national team for a bit, and then obviously before the late May, June, and then it all starts properly. So yeah, I think that get 3 points in, it's like, or even the point like Cesar was saying, then you've got two home games, and 15 points basically gets you to the World Cup. So 8 points from 4 games for Mexico would be brilliant. If it's 10 points, Mexico are almost there, and I think that'd be a a massive boost for Osorio. And I think the context, I know I keep going on about it, but going back to the Copa America and the 7-0, it's like things are really building up nicely, and I think that tomorrow's another chance to kind of prove that, really.
So Tom Marshall is sold on Juan Carlos Osorio, is what you're telling me. That's it. I mean, the expert says it. We all should follow. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom, for giving us time. I know that very busy and that you're there. Safe travels. Again, follow Tom on Facebook, giving us live. I'm sure he's going to do a few videos before, giving us the color. Interested to see. We don't get to see a lot of what happens in Port of Spain. So make sure you're following our friend Tom Marshall. And your prediction, Tom, for tomorrow before we let you go?
Yeah, I'll go 1-0 Mexico again. I said that for the Costa Rica game. I don't know, it's rare that you see, I suppose the United States beat Honduras 6-0, but it's rare that you see such big differences in game these days. And I think it's going to be another tough game, but I just think Mexico have got plenty of quality and crucially, a lot of confidence. I think there's a lot of confidence between the players and we can get the job done.
All right. Phil, thank you, Tom. Nos vemos, and we'll talk to you next week.
Buenas noches, Tom.
Buenas
Later, Tom.
noches. Hey, nos vemos.
Tom's going to go party it up with the team. He just texted me. He's like, hey, wish Marco Fabian was here. Oh. All right. Well, there you have it. I mean, let's talk about how we're thinking in our prediction, how the game's going to go. I know we have 5 or 10 more minutes, but against, I feel like they're, this Trinidad team, we see these guys like, get the ball in the middle of the field and somehow it gets to one of the forwards. They're not very technical on the passes, but when a forward gets it, turns around and like shoots it, and it's just golazo. Like I've always seen Trinidad score against Mexico with like golazos. Somehow, and I feel that's how it's going to happen if our defense isn't there, if Salcedo isn't ready, or I think it's really going to test that physical forward. Can we do that? And I think that's where we go down. But that being said, I feel like Osorio is going to keep going with this intelligent Mexico that we saw against Costa Rica. Very technical. If they're up 1-0, they're not going to get pressure to keep on scoring. And I think Trinidad isn't that team where they're going to have possession very much. And I think that's where Mexico is going to be able to score a lot more than what we're used to against these physical teams. Kind of what we saw, that 4-4, but I feel like Mexico, there's going to be more goals this time around. I'm going for a 3-1. I do feel Trinidad's going to score 1 goal off like a crazy, like, I don't know, chest and then bicycle kick into it, like some crazy golazo that the Trinidad is going to do. But let's hear your predictions. Start with Cesar.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Trinidad and Tobago has given Mexico some problems in the past. Last year was it last year or the year before, 2015? Either the last 2 matches we had against them, it was a 3-3 draw and a 4-4 draw. And I think we still have to also keep in mind this team just got a win recently against Panama, so they're going to have a little bit of confidence going into this match.
Was that at Panama or was that at home?
That was in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I still think, obviously, on paper, you look at the 2 teams, and there's no reason why Mexico shouldn't win. So I think Mexico's going to go through with a 2-1 win.
2-1. All right, Jason.
I was thinking 3-1. You stole my score, but I'm going to stick with it and just kind of follow your shoes there, Riso. But I don't know.
Chicharito breaks the record. Cesar,
No. Chicharito won't be playing. I agree with Tom. I don't think he's playing. I think it's Vela, Raul, and Uribe up top with Orbelin and behind him. And so I think big game for Orbelin. Hopefully, so I think he needs it. So especially to kind of lock up a place for the summer.
Yeah. All right. Naib?
I'm a little bit worried about the pitch. I mean, I think Peralta mentioned it in the conference, Osorio, and also Tom brought it up. That depends a lot because, it just makes wonders to the way that the ball is moved and how Mexico plays, because we judged the 3 first hexagonal games. The pitch in Columbus was nice. The pitch in Azteca was nice, and those were 2 wins. And then the draw over there in Panama was just it was a bad pitch. It was horrible, and that's what caused the 0-0, I think. It's hard to develop the quick pace football, the touches. It will be really direct football from Mexico, but there are players there that can play direct football. So, I say it's going to be a 1-0 for Mexico, but I wouldn't be surprised of the tie. I think it's going to be a physical game, and like we've seen it so far. A draw is not bad right now for Mexico. I think the start has been quite excellent, for what happened in the last hexagonal. Hopefully no more injuries, especially that's another thing. We've seen a lot of injuries with this team in the last games or so. And like, for example, if, Orbelin, Jason mentioned Orbelin, but if let's say Herrera starts again, let's put it there on the table. I mean, hopefully the guy can give something special.
He will.
If Herrera plays.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're seeing on the chats, Pancho Villa's Army saying 10-0. 2-1 from MB23, Borg 2-0, Albert, our friend Albert Campa 1-0, 3-2 Samuel Jimenez, Giovanna says 2-2, Chuy says naive, I love you, just want to put that out there, 4-0, Joel saying there's a reason why Mexico hasn't won in Trinidad and Tobago, it's going to be a tough game, 1-1 or 0-0. So, it looks like Luis Sarco says 3-3. If not, then Mexico is losing. So could be all over the place. But I'm going to stick with my 3-1 there. All right. Any other news? Anything else in Mexico? This is, and I'm sorry, Cesar, but you did say this. This is, we win this match. We have 10 points. It's like 90%. We're in. All we need to get is
I think I saw
three or 4 points in the next 4 games.
I saw some, even before heading into this match, just there's some like SPI projections about Mexico making it to the World Cup. I think right now it stands at 99%. This is like some ESPN SPI stat about Mexico making it into the World Cup. So I think Mexico will be all right. I think they'll be fine. They'll be okay, regardless of how this match turns out.
Look, I do personally feel that after the 7-0, like Tom was saying about a blessing, I think let's be prudent there if it actually did turn things around. But I do see convincement from the player side to Osorio's idea. Now, the way that is going to be evidence is through results, and if the results keep coming in and keep piling, well, then there's good evidence to suggest that the idea is working out. Now, right after the Trinidad game, Mexico will play against Croatia, Ireland, Portugal, Russia, and also U.S. in Azteca. I put U.S. in that back right there. Those are good 5 teams that Mexico is going to play in May and June, and it will be interesting to see how Mexico plays out those games. Hopefully with a complete squad, with no injuries. I think that would be great, and that's a good parameter to see how good this team can be. Because in CONCACAF, it's hard to match. There's the football-wise is not that high. I'm not going to be putting it into the high. It's just there's other aspects that play against you in CONCACAF. The pitch, the fans. Panama was rowdy, over there in Panama City when Mexico visited. In Trinidad, it's a little bit laid back, as we saw over there in Tom's video in the hotel. It looked there was no fans around. There was no one bothering the national team. But there's other aspects. They're really physical, quick, and what we've seen in past years, it was Trinidad that caused Cuauhtemoc's injury. That was a really serious one. So, look, there's so many variables in CONCACAF. CONCACAF is so exotic in that sense. Every team is different. There's some that are advanced tactically, and there's others that are really not advanced at all, but they can still make you damage.
Man, it's like what could have been with Cuauhtémoc Blanco. I'm going to talk about that. Go ahead, Jason.
Those first couple weeks in June, between those qualifiers and then confederations, those matches, it's going to really determine where we're going to go, I think, with Osorio. So, things are looking up right now, but it's going to come down to those matches, those qualifying matches with the U.S., and then what happens in the Confederations Cup. And I don't think Mexico is required to do anything in the Confederations Cup except look respectable.
Get out of the group. Get out of the group.
Get out of the group, yes, but if they don't get out of the group, I don't think Osorio gets fired as long as they look like a respectable team.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. But I think it's a pretty, not easy, but I feel like you can get out of the group. I remember,
Definitely.
Russia,
Portugal, New Zealand.
yeah. So it looks like, I mean, although host, it's hard going against the host.
All right, just go through the 4 points.
That's right.
Really quick. Listen to this right here.
What is happening? Why are we bringing that? Why are we bringing this up?
1,001
What's going on?
days ago, guys. 1,001 days.
That was mean.
That was very mean. I'm never going back on the podcast ever again. We saw.
Just want to remind you guys that's.
Well, thank you. You know, usually I need a nice reminder to brighten my day.
Guys,
So.
This was supposed to be the positive show, man. What just happened?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There we go. This was supposed to be the positive show.
Can we? Are we ever gonna call it? Like, are you gonna come back and be like, that was a penal? Like, or is that like it gets sacrilegious? Because
No, it's just just come out with T-shirts that say maybe era penal, maybe era penal.
Maybe.
I can see why he called it. Let's just be honest. We can see why he called it that Robin did, dive. Yes. That he's a liar and a thief. Yes. That he probably didn't do that. But
are we really going to be discussing this at the last minute of the podcast? 1,001 days later.
It was 1,001 days. It was 1,001 days. Who knows? All right, guys.
Also, really quickly.
Go ahead.
Really quickly, Liga MX, they just announced the rescheduled matches for Week 10, which will be April 11th through the 13th. There we go. That's all I wanted to sneak in there. Yeah, well, they got to sneak it in. There's no room, man, unless if you push back the playoffs, and that could overlap with a lot of Mexican national team stuff. And it already is overlapping with a friendly, so.
Did you see that friendly? It's the 28th that it could be the semifinals of Confederations Cup.
Yeah, they actually over there with the friendlies, they have one against Ghana that will be in Houston, but over there in the broadcast in Mexico and TV Azteca's broadcast, actually, they were mentioning that there's a possibility of a Mexico, Argentina, and Seattle before the Gold Cup.
Well, yeah, they're going to be in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So it could possibly be La Albiceleste over there in Seattle.
Last time friendly against Argentina was with Tuca, with 2-2 in Arlington.
Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, San Diego, 2008. I think he got killed there, 4-0 or 4-1, if I remember, against Argentina. All right, guys. It's been a great show. We'll see what happens. Definitely sorry to everyone's like, you're gonna block me. I won't even say what Pancho Villa said to me. Whatever, guys. Rafa Stone, what a penal. All right, join us next Monday, obviously every Monday on the Mexican Soccer Show. And we really ask you guys, subscribe. Joanna, she subscribes, and you get the links. You get all the videos that we post here in Foot Mex Nation. You're going to start seeing a lot more of the Mexican Soccer Show, where we'll have a website dedicated to the Mexican Soccer Show on Foot Mex Nation. If you haven't already, check out our Foot Mex Nation's new design and new website, so you can see that. There's actually a little cool scoreboard on the top, so you can actually see the last 10 Mexico games and get a recap of what happened by clicking on them. So lots of fun stuff happening. Really quick, we haven't done this in a long time, but Naive at Naive Moran, and also on Facebook. Naive is a journalist in Mexico City right now, traveling in Houston, but Naive writing at ESPN FC, correct?
Correct.
You write about Naive. Yeah, all the things, right?
All things Liga Mex and the national team, with special look on America, but it's usually all Liga Mex and El Tri.
Awesome. Follow Naive, Mr. Jason Markowitz for Soccer Mexicana. Jason, plug in your weekly soccer, all things soccer email.
My newsletter that goes out once a week, Soccer Mexicana Weekly. You should subscribe to that. You can find it pinned on my top of my Twitter. But search through the best of the Mexican soccer writing in English every week and put it all in a nice little email. It shows up in your inbox every week. So find that, subscribe, definitely.
Okay, I'm a big fan of that. Actually, it's really nice because you'll bring up a lot of articles that like aren't within our tiny little circle of writers, and you'll like pick out. There's like, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't know was out there. It's kind of cool, actually.
We're like,
there's a lot out there.
We're like
Yeah.
the mean girls of Mexican soccer in English. There's people out there. No, it's really, really cool. I always wish that I could make
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Like, I'm always like, is one of my articles ever going to make Jason's, top?
I just don't really like you. I think that's really
Step up your game, Wiso. Step up your game, man.
All right. Cesar, he's writing all over the place. Tell us, Cesar, where are some articles that are coming out, or where can we find your publications, brother?
Also, really quickly, Jolie just said Cesar is a fan because the majority of the articles are his. Just ESPN 442, Soccer Nation, and of course on FootMex Nation too.
Awesome.
And you can
Yes.
Yeah.
Ask Cesar. You can actually ask Cesar anything. If we haven't done so, it's really fun.
Anything. I answer all your questions. Seriously. Johnny asked for Tinder advice, and I gave him Tinder advice. I say put more puppies. Put more puppies in your pictures. Maybe kittens too. Really show off you have a sensitive side.
Yeah, it's really fun. As Cesar, he chooses 2 to do on video on Fridays, and then he answers your questions. So it can be about anything. Most of sometimes there's no soccer involved questions, or sometimes it's all soccer involved. But I get a chance to look at it, and we definitely laugh on your guys' questions. But at least keep it PG-13. All right, you can go to PG-13.
If there's an intermediate between
maybe there's some
PG-13
rated
and PG.
R between PG.
PG-10. PG-10 is what I say.
PG-10. Okay.
PG-10.
All right, guys. Giovanna, that's his advice. Put more puppies.
I've never used Tinders. I have no idea. I've never used
Joel just asked. I asked how many wipes, and if you fold the paper or crumple it into a ball. All right, now you're seeing a bunch of questions right now, guys. So just go ahead and ask him when he comes out in the article. Thank you so much, Cesar. Thank you so much, Jason and Naive. Again, guys, subscribe to the channel, and also all our social media. Follow us on Facebook, and let's keep this El Tri English content. I feel like this is our year. We're gonna take over, and hopefully one day that hashtag El Tri Eng is trending worldwide, where they're like, what the heck? All right, guys, thank you so much, everybody in the chats. We had a lot of people today. Help us share this. If you know any friends that would like to listen to Mexican soccer in English, share it tomorrow. Share it on your Facebook. Definitely love, obviously, keep growing, and it helps us on the way. So help us. All right, guys, we'll see you guys next Monday. We'll be talking about Liga MX. Finishing obviously Mexico and what's to come in Mexico's great summer that's coming up. Obviously, Liga MX is finally getting really good. Europeos and Mexicans abroad. So we'll continue to talk all about Mexican football. This has been another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Hasta la próxima.